And I now proceed to the agenda item addressed by the President of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly and give the floor to Her Excellency Ms. Margareta Cederfelt, the President of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly. You have the floor, Margareta.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson in Office, Madam Secretary General, Ministers and Ambassadors. It's my great pleasure to welcome you here in Stockholm. I am especially privileged to address you from my own constituency. Unfortunately, we met as tensions are building up across the OSCE region. Just beyond the Baltic Sea, thousands of migrants, refugees and asylum seekers are pawned in a geopolitical struggle. The situation in and around Ukraine risks further escalating in a conflict that will soon enter its 8th year. But I would underline that Ukraine's right to its international agreed territorium is still relevant and important. Border clashes between troops from Armenia and Azerbaijan have raised the specter of renewed hostilities 1 year after a deadly conflict. I do kindly ask the parts to get together and agree for a long-lasting peace agreement. Throughout the OSCE, there is an urgent need to de-escalate and promote greater solidarity and unity. Ministers, on numerous occasions, you have turned to our organization to deal with such challenges. You have trusted the OSCE as the most effective instrument in our arsenal to create the conditions for dialogue and cooperation. Why? Because you know that OSCE can be reactive, flexible, and inclusive. Yet, we know that the OSCE itself is not perfect. Despite our best efforts, the OSCE has not prevented every war. It has not solved protracted conflicts. It has not delivered the full promise of the Helsinki Final Act or the Paris Charter. We need to acknowledge these collective failures. But ministers, these are not the failures of the OSCE as a concept. They are not an excuse to block the agendas of meetings, to delay the adoption of a budget, or to ignore our principles. These failures are only a symptom. Deep down, they reveal a lack of mutual trust, or lack of mutual understanding, and a lack of political will. But there can be a strong change on this if there is a willingness. Excellencies, clearly we cannot agree on everything. Our assessment can sometimes be polar and opposites. But there is a lot to gain today by finally meeting in person after 2 years, by considering each other's points of view, and hopefully by inching closer to each other. 1 year ago, the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly launched a call for action. With your support, we must continue building partnership to improve the way the OSCE operates and respond to our common challenge in the OSCE region. Madam Chair, it is rare to have both the OSCE chairperson in office and the OSCE PA president coming from the same country. It is even less frequent that women lead both the executive and the parliamentary dimension of the OSCE at the same time. Together with Ms. Schmidt leading the OSCE Secretariat, I find it encouraging that there are women who have the seats at this table. I appreciate the good cooperation that we have achieved together, and I look forward to collaborate closely with the Polish chairmanship next year. We need to continue fighting for the full, equal and meaningful participation of women in our organization and in all peace process across the OSCE region. I recently visited Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, where I had the opportunity to see the positive work done in local communities with the OSCE support to empower women and youth and promote more peaceful and just society. My conversation with communities organizers were a touching reminder of the very concrete impact that the OSCE can have on the lives of all our citizens. They were also a clear illustrations of the positive contribution of civil society to build security at the grassroots level. It is damaging that in Belarus and elsewhere, civil society and the opposition work under great pressure. In this context, we need to address another failure, not being able to hold the Human Dimension implementation meeting this year again. Let me be clear. This situation is a crisis for human rights. It is a crisis for democratic protection and monitoring in our region. This needs to be addressed. It cannot be ignored. I have therefore asked all members of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly to question their ministers about the steps you have taken to avert or rectify this situation. A reaction is needed, dear ministers. We must prevent a permanent crisis of the OSCE human dimension, including our election observation efforts. All three dimensions are interrelated. If we are serious about achieving lasting security in Europe, we have to give them equal care and equal commitment. We cannot let the OSCE become an organization à la carte. This is also true when it comes to the long neglected economic and environmental dimension. On the heel of the COP26 conference, we must address the climate crisis to realize the OSCE vision of comprehensive security. Ministers, as I alluded to earlier, I have had the opportunity to witness the life-changing work that OSCE field operations conduct every day in many of our participating states. These minutious and invisible efforts are essential to diffuse tension and prevent conflict. The OSCE Parliamentary Assembly remains a strong supporter of the OSCE work on the ground where it's most needed. In this context, I am especially alarmed that the activities of the Special Monitoring Mission in Ukraine continue to be impeded. As our ears and eyes on the ground, the SMM is an essential tool for impartial and factual monitoring and reporting. But for them to remain relevant, monitors have to be able to do their job. For this, they need to have safe, secured, and unhindered access throughout the territory of Ukraine. Full support is needed on all sides to guarantee this without delay. The current situation in Ukraine calls on us to find ways to de-escalate tensions and prevent additional human suffering. Excellencies, in the midst of the many challenges directly facing our countries, I am deeply concerned by the degradation of the situation in Afghanistan. Taliban rules in a direct threat to the livelihoods of women, of minorities, and of anyone who disagrees. It has raised the threat of violent extremism and terrorism. It has dramatically increased the risk of trafficking of persons, of weapons, and of drugs. With winter taking hold, there is a need to prepare for a calamitous humanitarian crisis. The potential spillover of instability should concern all of us. And once more, international solidarity is urgently needed to avoid a disaster. We cannot leave a few countries to bear the brunt of a new exodus. Turkey, in particular, is already hosting to the largest refugee community in the world. If we are truly committed to collectively security, we need to be serious about sharing responsibility. Ministers, it is an immense privilege for me to speak to you today and to carry the voice of hundreds of parliamentarians. Despite all the constraints of the pandemic, we have remained strong advocates of the OSCE delivering as a whole. I thank you for recognizing this crucial role in the texts that have been negotiated ahead of this meeting. In the coming months and years, and looking ahead to the 50th anniversary of the Helsinki Final Act, rest assured that OSCE will carry out with our mission. OSCE PA will continue to support principle-based dialogue. We will continue to build trust and respect, and we will contribute to define a strategic vision of the OSCE. And we will continue to generate the political support necessary for our organization to reach its full potential. And we do this in support of the three dimensions to promote a secure life for those who have elected us as members of national parliaments, and it's our obligation as MPs. And you, ministers, you can count on us. OSCE PA is ready to support your work, to cooperate with you, and you can count on us. Thank you very much, and I wish you 2 fruitful and successful days here in Stockholm. Thank you, Madam Chair.